When I was between the ages of 5 and 6, I had my first near-death experience. We were having fun in a sand park in Paris, where we were visiting, with my sister. My sister had managed to climb to the top of a rope spider. I was making my way up the spider to meet up with her. I was startled by an odd sensation and recalled informing my sister that something was wrong. My chest hurt so badly that I had to get down from the spider. I departed my body. The details of my first near-death experience are hazy at best. I do recall the sensation of moving at an unfathomable speed, being in a tunnel, and viewing various pictures at that time. When I left my body, I don't recall feeling any pain at all. I left my body and returned to it at the same breakneck speed. I was shivering so much. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was back where I belonged. I felt like there was sand in my mouth. I went back to that location rather frequently following my first near-death experience, which is why I informed you about the circumstances around that event. Because this location is not a place, I will refer to it as I went back, I went, or simply go because I do not know how to express it in a way that does not lead it to be distorted or damaged. It is not there, neither down nor up nor anywhere in between. It can be found anywhere. It is quite far away, while at the same time it is very close. When I was younger, I recall telling my mother that every time I moved away, I passed away. However, she was certain that I suffered from some sort of physical ailment. At least a dozen different professionals were consulted by her on my behalf. They never identified a single problem with my health, except for the last specialist, who explained that the reason I was falling was because the vagus nerve in my body had been disconnected. He said that it was similar to when two wires were being disconnected, and that this was the cause of my loss of consciousness. Both the specialist and my mom inspired faith in me. After all, what was there for a 12-year-old like me to know about it? Even though I left at a different point following the diagnosis, I still remember it. I'm only sure of one thing, that I went back. After some time had passed, I started to think that my adventures were only products of my own mind. All of the memories of my journeys began to dissipate one by one, despite the fact that at the time they felt so genuine to me. The only thing that left was the recollection of that tunnel and all of those images. I was completely submerged in the reality of this existence, and I had the impression that nothing took place. As a result, my journey seemed like a faraway dream. I couldn't help but feel hemmed in by a too simplistic outlook on life and a confined sense of the world around me. These adventures served more as an outlet for my imagination and fancy than anything else. After a number of years had passed, when I was somewhere between 14 and 16 years old, I went back to that location. It happened during a night when I was hanging out with a couple of my close friends. In front of the television, we were all seated there together. At that same time, my partner and I were sitting on the couch together. Fight Club was the name of the movie that we were viewing. The movie was really violent, and while watching a fight scene, I started to feel awful for the characters. As soon as I realized I wasn't feeling well, I demanded that the movie be stopped. It seemed as though everything around me had become hazy, and the sounds were becoming farther and further away. I had the sensation that I was leaving my body, yet I was aware that I would eventually return there. It was as if I were remembering everything for the first time. But I was so terrified because I couldn't stop thinking about the agony I felt the last time I was there. In point of fact, I had the same agony, which felt exactly the same as if my heart had stopped beating. Inside of my chest, it seemed as though my heart was twisting and spinning back on itself. It is the most excruciating physical agony I have ever experienced in my whole life, and it is the same each time. I viewed it as the cost of admission to see that location. Although I've always had the impression that the agony would be equivalent to that of a heart attack, I can't say for certain. Everything was different once the ache had passed. I departed from my physical form and made no attempt to return to it since I had no desire to do so. I focused my attention only on the tunnel and the light. I couldn't resist going down the passageway. I was familiar with this location and all of its aspects. I was free from uncertainty, dread, and anxiety as of that point forth. I couldn't help but feel a sense of calm and release all over my body. Because I recalled this area, I no longer feared pain or anything else. In fact, I no longer feared anything. I was making my way down the tunnel as quickly as possible. As was the case before, the majority of the tunnel's walls were covered in photographs. I was there in every image, but I couldn't say that I recognized myself in every single one of them. I seem to recall pausing for a more in-depth examination of one of these photographs. When I looked at the photo, I saw that I was among a group of people, seated in the rear of a red convertible, and moving through a sunny location. There were 5 of us riding together in the automobile, and we were all in a good mood. We were all giggling at the same time. I couldn't even identify myself, let alone the others. All I know is that it was me. After giving it some thought, I've come to the conclusion that the pictures could be representations of memories from prior lifetimes of mine that are stored on the energy boundary of my soul, comparable to if the walls of the tunnel represented my soul, and as I reached the end of the tunnel, I was in a state of unadulterated spirituality. When I was sitting in the convertible, the physical form that I had was very different from the one that I have now. Because of this, the photograph had such a profound effect on me, and without a doubt, this was due to the fact that it included a significant recollection. Everything moved at a breakneck pace within the tube. Nevertheless, I was able to look at each and every photo if I so wanted to do so. There was no room for error. It was both as if time had never existed and as if it had just vanished into thin air. I have the impression that it is only feasible for a human to comprehend the concept of without time or the non-existence of time when they are in a non-physical condition, while doing so on Earth seems to be an exercise in futility. At the conclusion of the passage, I emerged into an area that was all white and composed of light. There was nothing tangible there other than the overwhelming, white light. There was no beginning or conclusion to it. It felt like I was floating in the middle of an infinite sea of light, which was rippling with soft pink waves. The light was lovely and did not cause any discomfort to the eyes. Moreover, the temperature was rather comfortable. This pristine white location radiated love, sweetness, tranquility, and warmth to all who entered. But at that moment, when 3 enormous pillars of light appeared in front of me, I experienced love at its peak. These esoteric entities appeared as columns of light at times. I have never experienced a love quite like this one before. It is impossible to put into words the love that both they have for me and that I have for them. They know me better than anybody else on the face of the earth, and I don't know anyone better than they know me. They are a component of me, just as I am a component of them. Even my sister, who is someone I share a very special relationship with, as well as my own mother, seemed and still seem to me to be complete strangers in comparison to the 3 of these beings. I am aware that there are a great number of these beings in the place where I originate. That is my family right there. This love is beyond our comprehension of love on earth. Thus I have no words to adequately explain it. Instead, it can only be experienced. There is nothing that can be utilized to make a comparison to it. On earth, we are exposed to a form of love that is not truly love. Rather, it is an educational love designed to teach us about love. Because we mistakenly believe that we understand what love entails, we are the ones who are responsible for its annihilation. On the other hand, love is everything, love does everything, and love has to be understood. Love is completely misunderstood, and Earth provides a wonderful learning environment and plenty of opportunities for us to improve our understanding of love. These 3 perfect beings each communicated with me in their own unique tongue. They utilized my ideas, yet in a manner that was distinct from my ideas. They brought to my attention the fact that I had made the decision to take physical form on Earth, and that I was obligated to do so. I was aware beforehand that being in their company would result in everything coming back to me. They showed me an incredible amount of love. I was at home, and I had an intense want to remain there. Even though I didn't want to, I had no choice but to go back. That was the only possible outcome. I recall having a good time laughing with them. They grasped what I was saying. They were aware of the challenges that come with taking physical form, just as I was before I was born on this planet. I was much more little in comparison to others. Because of their height, I was unable to view them in their entirety. It was almost as though we were standing at the base of Hyperion, the world's tallest tree. Alternately, it seemed as if one were gazing at a cloud that sprang from the ground of the planet and ascended towards the skies. Their faces, hands, and legs were completely hidden from view. I have no idea if they even have any of those. They are light, and I am aware that love is a form of light. The only way I can think to describe them is as a magnificent and unadulterated shaft of light. I now understand that the location where we first connected was only a convenient stopping point on our journey together. It was almost like a collision between other worlds, and it was almost certainly a collision between different universes. Nevertheless, I can assure you that even in this state of transition, there are no desires, there are no anxieties, and there is no shortage of anything. I did not lack anything. I didn't require anything since I was everything I needed to be. I was aware of it, and I comprehended it. Everything was straightforward and in its proper location. Everything was love, unadulterated and without conditions. There were no guidelines, and I was in charge of making all of the judgments. Nobody made the decision for me. These 3 wonderful beings guided me through the process of returning to Earth. I have no idea how long I was there. It may have seemed like a month was like a second, or it could have seemed like a day was like a year. It is not feasible to determine. As a result, I returned. I had to. After going through the tunnel, I stopped to look at the photos. I am unable to determine whether or not they were the identical photographs, yet they were present. When I emerged from the tunnel, I found myself suspended from the ceiling of the living room. My body was resting comfortably on the couch, and the entirety of my social circle was surrounding me. They were tense while moving and caressing my body, which added to their anxiousness. When I came back to my body, it was a really trying experience, and I was in a lot of agony. It not only caused me physical discomfort, but also an emotional and spiritual anguish. I was having difficulty breathing and felt clammy and unpleasant. The difference was like being immersed in a vast lake of pristine, crystal clear, and warm water, with the pristine water becoming a part of me, enveloping me in love, and stretching my existence to the heavens. Then, all of a sudden, I found myself trapped within a little box that was open to a cloudy and rainy sky. I was standing in the middle of an empty and freezing street in the middle of town, and each drop of rain that landed on me carried ice into every inch of my blood. I blinked to clear my vision. I felt like sobbing and running away. I looked up and spotted some of my pals. They were in a state of fear, and although they were talking to me and moving around, they were waiting for an answer from me. On the other hand, I chose not to respond. I felt angry against them as though it were their fault that I had to go back. Naturally, they had absolutely nothing to do with anything at all. The upsetting sensation passed quickly after it had begun. During the following hour, I had extreme exhaustion and said very little due to it. It was as if the act of speaking weighted me down, and my tongue felt as heavy as iron. It was difficult for me to articulate what I wanted to say. I just inquired about the length of time that I had been absent, and Paul responded by saying that it had been between 40 and 50 seconds. It was unbelievable. I had the impression that I had been gone for 10 years. These journeys have provided me with some of the most unforgettable memories of my life. There is nothing that can match the intensity of the sentiments and emotions I am experiencing at this very moment. I am positive that I have had all of those symptoms in the past, long before the diagnosis. Regrettably, I can only recall a very small number of details from my previous trips. After returning from a far more advanced and evolved world, it might be challenging to readjust to life on Earth. I don't believe I've ever truly adjusted to the ways of this world. Instead, I just attempt to make the most of my time here and fulfill the purpose of my arrival. Taking drugs and drinking alcohol were, without a doubt, attempts on my part to escape this reality. I have struggled with despair and the urge to end my life, but despite those feelings, I could never have taken my own life since I am aware of how valuable and crucial life is. I wasted all those years waiting for this existence to expire, which was a complete and utter waste of my time. The weight of my isolation makes me assume that this incarnation is proving to be more challenging than I had anticipated. I have begun writing, and it is my intention to complete the book that I have been working on for the past 3 years. Through my book, I am able to go to a variety of worlds and planets, including locations that I am positive I have been in the past. For me, imagination is more than just a fruit, despite the fact that some people will undoubtedly try to convince me that it is all the product of my imagination. The capacity to create lies inside one's own vivid and potent use of imagination. It is a gateway to experiences and locations that are accessible only to the unconscious mind. I have not shared the details of my near-death experience with anybody, including my mother, my sister, or my friends. It wasn't until quite lately that I had the need to talk to you about this particular topic. I want to break my quiet, talk about it, and share it with other people. However, I have a hard time finding people who are willing to listen to such tales with an open mind and listening ears. Only our accounts of near-death experiences can provide us with a sliver of an answer, comparable to a scent among the aromas of billions of flowers.